Hello and welcome to the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. I'm Tate Hieronymus, and I'm joined with me by my co-host, Robert Leiterman. What's up, Robert?
Hey, what up?
How you doing?
Good. I'm kind of freezing my butt outside, but that's the best reception we get. So this is it. So by the time we're all done, I'll have this lantern super high up so I can see where I am.
You mean by the time we're done, you're going to have frostbite?
No, it takes a little bit longer than an hour to get it, I think.
You just need to have a little campfire going. But
oh, yeah, I think we appreciate it. I should start this table on fire over here. And so I'm good. I got my blankie. If it gets really cold, I just put my blankie on.
Well, there you go. Well,
what you don't know is I'm just wearing a pair of shorts like I always do. So that's the way life is.
I'm wearing no pants, so I think we're good.
Competition with Kip, are we?
Yep, trying to. But anyway, well, our guest for tonight was supposed to be Paul Graves, but miscommunication, I'm guessing. He couldn't make it, but last minute reached out to Jonathan Easley, and he is here tonight. What's up, my man?
What's happening? Happy to be on this again. How you guys doing?
We're tired. I've had a long day at work. I don't know about you.
Oh, I just got over a little cold here, so my voice is a little distant, but it's there. But yeah, all good. Today's that day where you wake up and you realize, hey, I've bounced back. I've gotten through this thing. I'm alive. So yeah. We're good.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, he's got that sexy voice. You can hear it. A little raspy, sexy voice to his dog.
It's like an American Sean Connery, right?
Yeah.
That's what I should be mother last night, drew back.
Well said.
The SNL skit. That's too good. So Jonathan, I know in the past year I was working on a documentary. Alex and Eli with Small Town Monsters was working on one, and then you made one too. Why don't you talk about why you wanted to do another documentary in Bluff Creek, and then kind of how that went about?
I always wanted to make like a good documentary, a nice lengthy one that really tells a story about Bluff Creek, because that area is one of the coolest stories that I've ever heard in general. If you take from late 1950s to up until when Roger Patterson filmed his footage, and even after that, it's one of the coolest stories. It's got these bigger than life characters. There absolutely has to be a movie about it someday, but there are so many stories within that. It's like an onion, the top layers, these two cowboys filmed what they say is a Bigfoot. Okay, well, there's more to it. Let's find out who those guys are. You dig a little deeper and deeper, and you dig through layers and more layers, and you start to find out that these amazing stories, they're rooted in it originally started with guys finding footprints when they were digging into virgin timber, and even far before that, if you count all the the stories from the Hoopa, the Yurok, and it just goes on until Patterson filmed his footage, and the guys still went there after that. But I just wanted to encompass that time frame where guys started, white man, I guess, I don't know what you call it, I guess, white man started digging trails through this forest and finding these footprints. And it was very real. And we right now we live in an era where we still have Bob Gimlin alive, we still have guys like Jay Rowland alive. And we have people like Carl Crew, who's in my documentary, who I went out to Burbank. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I talked to him, and he's Jerry Crew's nephew. So he had all these neat stories passed on to him that were, some of them are not told. He has letters from Bob Titmus to Jerry Crew. He has all kinds of things. He has newspaper clippings and magazines, and just this entire huge collection that was passed down to him, and that he also collected. So yeah, it was just there's a story to be told there, and I wanted to just tell a little bit of that. Some people haven't heard some of that.
Oh yeah, and I think it was like really, really well done. And like the cinematography was good. Like the musical score, if you will, was really good. It was just really well told, and yeah, that you didn't tell anybody that you had Carl Crew in it, and then we were watching it like, dude, there's Carl Crew. How awesome!
Yeah. Yeah, I had met Carl through a podcast that you're the one that reached out to him, Tate, right? And we were on this like group podcast, and it was really cool to talk to him. And he mentioned he was in Burbank, California. Now at the time I lived in Southern California, and I thought, oh, that's only a couple hours away. I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, come on down anytime. But that kind of got left marinating, I guess. And before I went up to Humboldt to Bluff Creek last time, I decided, you know what? Why don't I hit him up and talk to him and film it, just see what he has to say, because he's got a lot of stories. He's got a lot of things to show, and he's a very interesting guy. If you're in the Burbank area, he owns the CIA. It's the California Institute of Abnormal Arts. And if you just listen to that, how that sounds, I mean, it's exactly what it is. It is some weird stuff in there. Like, you almost feel like, should I be here? This stuff looks almost like borderline, like demonic, And, I mentioned that, he goes, oh, no. He goes, there's stuff here that had some bad juju, and I got rid of it. He goes, if stuff has bad juju, I get rid of it. He has like a couple corpses that are like over 100 years old. And one of them is a clown from, I believe it's France. And he tells this whole story about him. And I mean, that clown, you look at him in that little casket, he looks like he can wake up and sit up. Like, it looks that real. He's that, taken care of. He has like a replica of a supposed Fiji mermaid. He has all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just absolutely weird. He has stories about collecting certain items and people freaking out about it, like a painting claiming the eyes move, and several people told him that the eyes move, so he got rid of that thing. But aside from being such a kind of an interesting guy, and he has such a weird place, he also is Jerry Crew's nephew. So it's like, on top of all this, he tops it off with, oh yeah, and my uncle named Bigfoot, which Jerry Crew was the one that he told me. So you see, I always thought it was what was a gentleman's name, Gonzoli, the editor of the one of the editors over there at the journalist at the over in help me out here, Eureka.
Eureka.
Yeah, and I guess Jerry, he was telling me how Jerry was in town there after he had casted those prints, and Mr. Gonzoli got word that this guy has giant footprints, and said, I got to talk to him. Well, the Associated Press, of course, picked up that story after he interviewed Jerry, and it went nationwide. Now, that article that mentioned Bigfoot, but I always thought it was Gonzoli that came up with that, but it's actually, because Carl Crew told me. He goes, no. He goes, it was Jerry. Jerry was the one showing up to the sites and going, up. That Bigfoot came around here again. So when he went to Gonzoli, he says, yeah, this is Bigfoot, and Bigfoot foot. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Very interesting story.
Yeah, you kind of got me in that spot. We talk about this guy had these freaky stuff in this. So it is a museum thing. And who did he give them to? How do you get rid of something like that? Did you ask him that?
So, yeah, yes, I did. The story on it was he received this painting, right? I don't know from where. He knows from where. I can't remember. And he hung it up in his museum. And he had people run up to him and say, that's hilarious. You got us. And he's like, what are you talking about? And they told him, well, come on, man, stop, messing with us. And he's like, I really don't have any tricks here. What are you talking about? He goes, the eyes on that painting moved. And it was a picture. It was a portrait of a woman, a painting of a woman. And he said, it's not. No. He goes, they're yanking my chain. They're messing with me. So they took off. And so the funny part was that someone stole it. Someone broke in and grabbed, I guess, the first thing that they can grab, and they stole it, he says. And he says a few days later, weeks later, I don't know how much time, he finds it propped up outside of his business, right? and it's sitting there, and it says, he has a note on it saying, we don't ever want this back. Like, there's something wrong with it. So he goes through this note and he's going, this is weird. Then he had another person say, the eyes move on that thing. So he had several people tell him that the eyes moved. I don't know if he trashed it. I don't know if someone took it, but he just got rid of it because, he does not like any. He's a lot like me, I'll go stand out at Laird Meadow at 2:00 in the morning, listening for whatever it is with lights off. That's fine. But going into like ghosts and all that, supernatural stuff, that's I don't mess with that. I don't mess with that stuff. Maybe there are people who like to do that. I don't. And he's kind of the same way in that sense, where he doesn't want to mess with any of that stuff. But, he's got a bunch of stuff like that, elephant, or perfect replica of the Elephant Man's bones, this gigantic Jack in the Box popping out of a wall. Like, it's just weird stuff there. But it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that a little bit, not about his museum, but in Bodie State Historic Park, everything there's protected. It's an old historical town that kind of had its problems. Well, people take things, the souvenirs from Bodie, and they have bad luck. So Bodie gets a lot of stuff mailed back to them, says, oh, we picked this up, we're just returning it. But the stories behind those, they're returning those pieces of artifacts, rusted cans, pieces of porcelain, whatever. They're returning those things because since they had them in their possession, they've had bad luck. So they're returning it, hoping that their luck will change. So I just kind of interesting how that little crossover there for that.
Well,
wow, very cool.
Interesting stuff. I was watching things on Crater Lake.
Yeah. And worked there 2 summers.
There's that tree that floats in the water there.
The wizard. That's Wizard Island. The Phantom ship.
No, it's the.
It's the old man of the lake.
Yes.
The old man of the lake. Yes.
There's some weird stories about that. People, I guess they were doing a submersive submarine there to kind of explore the lake, and they tied it up, and apparently like bad weather came in, and because like they tied the log or the tree up, and as soon as they untied the tree, the weather like got better again and was sunny and all that. I don't know. I think that's kind of weird.
It is interesting. That the old man of the lake moves around with the winds. It's never in the same place twice. So when you're navigating the lake, you got to be careful. You have to run into it.
It's crazy how it's a tree that's straight up and down. It's not like a log.
Yeah.
That's insane about it.
Well, it's still a log, but it's waterlogged and it's floating in the lake and has been for years.
It's like, but it's up and down.
Yeah, it's waterlogged. Ha 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 ha. It's the old man of the lake. It's one of the phenomena you get to see. I haven't seen it, and I worked there for 2 summers. I did some. I got on the boats. Occasionally go to Wizard Island. It's just the island out there, just to check it out. I've jumped in the water before, and it looks like there's no bottom because you can't see all the way down. It's one of the deepest lakes in the world. I want to say number 3, but my memory escapes me. But the lake is pretty clear. And one of the experiments they're doing using a Seji disc, which is a round object that has black and white mixed on it, and they lower it down to see how far you can go down before you can't see it anymore. And the clarity was pretty good, but it was getting worse since 1986, since I worked there. But anyhow, so much for Crater Lake trivia and all the missing people that show up there and all that good stuff. But but I actually I want to put an attaboy in for Jonathan. The In the Field interviews that we do, our theme song, our opening song was written by none other than Jonathan.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah.
I like it because the essence of what we try to capture in the field is just like these frogs you're hearing behind me. Like the essence in the field is capturing people in the natural environment and hearing the background sounds as well. So having your opening song really sets the mood for the In the Field interviews. And I just want to personally thank you for that and give you credit for that.
Oh man, thank you so much. Yeah. I wrote that song. It's called Backpacker's Night. And it's on my other YouTube channel, not on the Western Bigfoot Exploration one, but it's under, I believe, Easley Writer is the other channel, my YouTube channel. But I got like 4 songs that I've written on there. One of them is called Backpacker's Night, and I try to incorporate just exactly what you said. I try to do it like I wanted it to sound like if you're next to a campfire out in the middle of nowhere, there's all these, it was in the full song, there's coyotes and, all kinds of stuff. There's no Bigfoot. Maybe I should have added one in there, but,
A distant howl.
yeah, it's called, Backpackers Night. And I'm real glad you guys, it's the coolest musical thing that's happened, at least to me, maybe.
Hey, it's not too late. You could have the same track, but add a distant Sasquatch howl.
Mm.
And instead of what was the title you had for it?
Backpackers Night.
Okay, Backpackers Nightmare.
There you go.
Or Backpackers Fright.
Backpackers Fright. Yeah, I like that.
Now,
awesome.
I want to talk about this too, because I mean, now that we've all camped at Laos Camp,
Mm-hmm.
I know when Jonathan, you and I, and Alex and Eli camped down there with Ron, we had this kind of discussion that the film site is not as creepy as Laos Camp is. Laos Camp is, I don't know what it is, but that place is creepy. I mean, what do you think about that?
So, like in the documentary I made, I tried to just show Laos Camp in a way that, I mean, because you go around YouTube and you don't really see like videos of Laos Camp other than from the Bluff Creek Project channel. That's it. You got it in a couple videos now, like yours and Alex and Eli's, but you don't really have any shots of Laos Camp. So I try to just show, what it looks like when you're staring around at a distance through the bushes. There's just so many elements to Laos Camp. I mean, there's points where you can look across and you can see, like 60 yards down the way, but there's other spots where you can only see 30 feet away, and it's like so bushy. And the way it's built, the way Laos Camp is set up, it's like you got the creek on one side, you got this whole like bowl, so like noises kind of like bounce off. The creek is constantly talking. The first time I went there, I was like, dude, there's people here. I was telling this guy Jeff Kelly, there's people here. He's like, no, it's the creek, and he's laughing, and I'm like, dude, I can literally hear a conversation. I just can't understand the words. We heard people. I mean, that first time I went, it depends on the water level, I guess, but we heard people like that. You could almost hear like kids splashing around in the water and yelling and screaming and all that. And then you walk up and there's nothing there. You hear all kinds of noise coming from the creek, talking, yelling, people arguing. That one's a popular one. People hear the you hear it from down in the creek. Yeah. And it's just a creek. It's just the way that your brain is trained to try to pick up speech from everything it hears. And when it hears the gurgling of the creek, it almost hits the same, I don't know if the frequencies is the right word, maybe reverberations, I'm not sure, but it picks whatever up and it tries to turn it into speech, and that's what you're hearing. And it's kind of creepy, and it's really dark in there. And like I said, there's spots where you can see 60 yards away, spots where you can see 35 yards away, and you're constantly like looking around at Laos Camp, and there's noises and there's stuff that moves around. And at the film site, it's kind of like, you're kind of enclosed. You got those smaller trees all around you. You got the creek immediately right next to you. So it almost feels, I guess, in a sense, safer. You can almost hear everything that moves around there makes noise. So I think that the perception of your mind is just I guess, is just that it's safer there at the film site. I don't know why, just because of the way it's built. So everything's a lot closer into you, and you can see everything. You can see it's like being in a smaller room, almost smaller space.
Yeah, it's very odd because you go up there to Laos Camp and you could drive in and you're set up and everything, and it's like, you can, if you needed to get away in an emergency, you just jump in your car and just get the road, and it's creepy for some weird reason.
Mm-hmm.
But the film site, you have to hike down at least a good mile. Or not, the hike down is not a mile, but I think the hike in general is about a mile or so.
Yeah, one way.
One way is a good mile.
To the film site from the berm.
Yeah, so it's like it's a ways in there. and you have to hike 1 mile, so 2 miles total to get in and out. And it's not as creepy. I don't get it.
Well, I'd like to add a little bit to that, if I will.
Yeah.
Because at Laos Camp, you're surrounded by 270 degrees of the creeks, right? You have Notice Creek, which you drive over the bridge, is built in 1958. Mm-hmm. And then it meets in with Bluff Creek, and that winds around, and then it goes on the back side of that big rocky face that's right there, that's overlooking the big swim hole, where anybody and their mother can be up there watching you the whole time. You never know it. Mm-hmm. It's a great place to perch and look down. Well, and the sounds, and yeah, I understand the sound. I've heard all sorts of sounds there. We're even in a conversation with some people who drove up. They were bear hunting, and I was with an old retired ranger buddy of mine, and we were just at Laos Camp, and they drove in, and of course you kind of go, wonder what these guys want. You know, you don't see that many people, so we kind of walked up to the car to chat with them. While we were talking to them, all of a sudden we started hearing some bass coming from up the canyon. It wasn't there before, but now you're hearing this bass, almost like someone's going boom, 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 boom. It's like, is that music we're hearing? And it's not on their radio, and their car engine's still going, but it was like you hear the water, and then this starts, and then it stops, and then they leave, you know. But also talking about the water sounds, like back at Bluff Creek towards the film site. I've hiked that so many times. And I tell this story, a lot of people says, well, Robert, you know, water makes its own sound when water hits the sticks and it moves back and forth or pushes rocks, or when it catches something in the water or different flow levels, they all change the pitch, which is true. So imagine walking down the canyon by yourself, hearing the normal river sound in Bluff Creek coming from the film site, about a mile down the river from the film site. All the normal sounds you expect to hear are there. You get to one point where you make a turn and you stop and you're looking around and you go, this is pretty. And then you go, well, I guess I should be going now. You're talking to yourself. You start to walk and now you hear a whole different sound. It sounds like women talking and giggling. You're like, what? And you listen, and now you're standing there listening to it because this is totally different than what you just heard. And you were standing there probably a good 5 minutes checking everything out. Now all of a sudden there's a whole new sounds, women talking and giggling. And it's coming from up the canyon off to the left where all that log debris was. So I go, well, there's people there. So I cross the creek, walk over. Once you get to the creek again, you don't hear it anymore because the sound of the creek is too strong. So you walk up the creek, you walk up the area, and now you're looking for footprints, right? You're looking, so you see deer prints, there's some holes of stagnant water, and you look up, and then the canyon kind of climbs up, and then you hear nothing. You're like, oh, that's odd. You yell, hey, anybody up here? Hello? Nothing. You walk all the way back over to the place you were before you first heard it because the river makes noises, you know, and I stood there for 15 to 20 minutes listening, and that sound never came back. So I guess the question is, was that the river talking to me and my mind was trying to make sense out of it? Just like when you look at a picture or a scenery of shadows, your mind tries to create faces and creatures because usually there's not always somebody there to draw a red circle around it. So sometimes you have to work at it a little bit. And so I hear that from time to time, but it's so separate than the normal sounds you would hear. And when you're with somebody and they hear the same thing, then you start asking questions like, did you hear that before? Or did it just start? Because I've been there where you can hear sticks going back and forth. The water's pushing against the stick and it makes that whooshing sound. And then you have rocks that get pushed a little farther back when it's the current's moving faster. So without seeing anything or just hearing stuff, it makes you wonder. And I've been at Laos by myself, just like Jonathan, I'm pretty sure you have too, waiting for other people to show up. And you're sitting there going, why do I feel like I'm being watched? And you're like, of course you're being watched because you're in the forest and animals live in the forest. But it is kind of unnerving. But just a little background history on Laos Camp. I've been there when we've had somebody walking around in the bushes there. We've heard calls there. Bobo has reports of seeing a skinny one looking down at him on the way in. So there are other reports. There's even a place downstream from there where Bobo told me about finding little footprints. So he took my son and I took my two boys. It was Bobo. It was Forrest and Francis, my two kids. And we walked up this canyon for probably about 3/4 of a mile. And there's a section that's always muddy. It's always muddy. Well, as we get there, we're looking around. on the way there, we found a few bear impressions, but they were old human boot prints. They're really old. And you see a couple bear prints, right? And then you get to this one muddy spot, and we're walking looking for prints because it's a great place to go look. So we're looking for prints, walking through, and lo and behold, we see these little kid footprints, about 5 inches, and look like little kids' feet, right? And there's rights and their left, and they go for about 30 yards through the mud. And you're thinking, and you're looking, there's no boot prints indicating any fresh boot prints like somebody had been there. But these little prints are pretty recent and pretty fresh. And then there's even bear prints that don't look like the little kids' footprints. It was bizarre. So Bob was telling me this before we get there, that this is a place where he's had some luck finding these juvenile tracks. I'm thinking, yeah, right. And I get there, and lo and behold, there's these juvenile looking tracks that don't look like bear tracks, look like little people tracks. And they're in the mud. And you're like, who's going to let their kid walk through mud, that oaky looking mud? Because if you've been there, it's kind of rust colored, kind of brownish. It's seeping out of the hillside. And who knows what barrel or whatever has been, dumped up there from the logging. So that's just another area up there in Laos that kind of makes you wonder when you stumble upon these things that you can't really explain very well. Yeah. So somebody lost a kid up there, and the kid walks up down the mud one direction, not two directions. And then you don't find any sign of the humans wearing boots that brought him there, And the only boot tracks you find are so freaking old. They've been there for a super long time that even the bears have walked on them.
Mm.
Anyhow, I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah, the stories from Laos Camp are something that adds to it, I guess, because I don't hear a lot of stories from Bluff Creek itself. Although I've heard a couple, but not as many as Laos Camp. Could it be because so many people stay at Laos Camp, and of course, the more people are there, the more things are gonna. Exactly, yeah. So, but no, Laos Camp's got Bobo has had 2 experiences there. Just a lot of people have heard a lot of weird things at Laos Camp. It just goes way back. It's got the lore to it because that's where Tom Slick set up his camp, right? You had some of the most famous researchers of Bigfooting go down there and camp out there, and that's where they set up their base camp. So that's pretty cool too.
And what's cool about Bluff Creek, the whole area, in my opinion, you can tell me what you feel, Jonathan, about it, is I think it's there's so many cool places that are really well known in Bigfoot history to hit up, different nights for Bigfooting. Well, you can go to one place, and if you don't get anything, we could try this other place tomorrow. And it's in reasonably close proximity to Laos Camp. You can drive there and you might get action. And it's far enough away at the same time that anything where you were the night before is not going to hear you at this other place you're going to be at. What do you think about that?
Correct. That's really cool. The thing is that there's a historical factor to it. It seems like anywhere you go, it's not you've been there and there's 1 or 2 stories and that's it. It's everywhere you go up there, there's this long trail of, so-and-so in the 1960s was here and this is where he did this. And this is, we went to Laird Meadow. They said, well, what's Laird Meadow? Well, there's a story to it. That's where, what's his name? Roger Patterson cast a footprint in 1963. So it's everywhere you go up there, it's almost like a museum, So even if you go there, let's say you get no action, you don't hear anything, you know what? You still visited this awesome place. And, in a sense, and I mean this in a really humble and fun way, not in an arrogant way at all, but it's you feel like you're Roger Patterson. You feel like you're, one of these old time researchers going up there. You're going to the same places they are. You're doing the same things they are most of the time, So in that sense, it's really cool. You go there. It's like going to a museum. Big outdoor museum. And if you love that kind of history, that's the place for you. These are the places where some of the most famous names in Bigfooting pulled some of their best evidence.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's it's one of the places that really put Bigfoot on the map too.
literally named Bigfoot.
Literally.
Yeah. I guess you could say it's a natural, cultural, living museum.
Exactly. And that's why when I
really-
found out about the Bluff Creek Project years ago, I was like, man, I really hope these guys, pull this off. And as far when I mean pull it off, I mean giving this place the notoriety it deserves. And you guys have done that. But
I think Robert is the lamest in the Bluff Creek Project.
yeah, he wrote the Bible.
Just kidding, Robert.
He wrote the Bible sequel, the Bluff Creek Project. I have it right here. I've been reading it. I am on page 300 and something. And I'll say this, for a story about guys trying to find a place in the middle of the woods, it is very, very entertaining. It is much more entertaining than even I thought. Usually there's a lot of things like if you watch those old Bluff Creek Project videos that you guys used to make, okay? Yeah. They're and this isn't knocking them because they were the originals, but it's just like you kind of have to, they're not like your average person is not going to go, oh, this is fantastic. It's not cut and edited, perfectly, but it's got so much information. And if you're really into the subject, you will enjoy those videos. If you're really into the subject, you don't have to be really into the subject to enjoy this book. The book is written for anybody to read. And it constantly keeps me like excited for the next page. It's really cool. I really liked it, Robert.
Well, thanks. When I was writing that, actually, the reason we started writing the book, The Bluff Creek Project, was because the 10th anniversary was coming up, right? And I said, what can we do differently? I mean, we've been working on that place for 10 years. We started the camera project. We're trying to determine how the lens, what size lenses were used. And we try to maintain the trail access, show people where it is, because it all belongs to everybody else. But the 10th anniversary was rolling around, and it says, we probably should do something different. I go, I got an idea. Why don't we take everything we've done, the journals, the video journals is what they are, and add the maps, the research, the little tidbit stories in, and put it together for our team members. So they always have something to remind them of the project that we started 10 years ago. And then one thing led to another. And next thing you know, it's like, well, what if we just did this and got it published like a normal publisher, like it was Amazon Publishing did this. And we could sell it to everybody who wants a copy of the adventure. And I go, oh, all right. But it's always a gamble when you tell a story. It's like a journal entry. And it really is when you think about all the dates and the conversations. Like, Robert, you have an excellent memory. How'd you remember exactly what everybody said 10 years ago? Well, the videos, I went through so much video dialogue to say, okay, we'll share that. That's stupid. We shouldn't even talk about that. We're lost again. We're aimlessly running in circles, as some people said. You guys were lost half the time. You didn't know where you were. We did, but it just looks that way on the video. But it's just like, okay, we can all put this together, and then we can tell this just journalistic story. And then I'm thinking, that's great. I go, it's nonfiction. I used to write fiction, but life is fiction and nonfiction when you have to live it out. I'm thinking, okay, well, we need to add something a little extra here. How about a little story about being stalked by a bear? Or how about a little story about, things happen to you at a restaurant? Or how about things that help paint the picture? How about that Willow Creek movie? What does that do about Bigfoot? Really, it's a fictional lost tape thing. Well, what's the big deal about that? Well, it was filmed at the exact location where those guys got together in '59. And Tom Slick was there at this fire, or standing around. So it was nice to bring it all together. Then you have your charts and your maps, and you draw these maps. You got to share them, right? So even with the grammatical problems or the misspellings in the maps, there's still maps. They still tell the story of what was there and how things lined up. So we go, oh, yeah, let's include all that. So we got done 615 pages later. We have the storybook, and it's interesting because like on Amazon, I stopped checking how many books are sold. And I stopped trying to follow people's comments, because the worst thing in the world is to listen to what people have to say about something that you produced, right? You're like, I don't want to hear about it. I enjoyed making it. Who cares? But it's nice to see people feedback and they say, well, we really enjoyed the story, just like yours. Hey, feel free to put that in Amazon. Yeah, that'd be great. Somebody could read it. I'm just kidding about that. But it's nice. Do it. No, don't do it.
I think I left a nice review on it on Amazon.
Sweet.
Make another one.
I'll make another one under another account. Okay.
Hell, everybody else does. I just think it's nice. I think the feedback's nice, and I enjoyed hearing people who enjoyed the book and the reasons for it. And one of the things people say is there's something for everybody. It's not just a diehard researcher. I try to put a little natural cultural history in there. I just try to make it a nice read because 615 pages of being told what to do is a lot of reading. So I'm glad you like it, and I like the approach of it, and I appreciate the feedback on that. And thank you so much. Hey, thank you for buying one of those suckers too. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course,
Hey,
I'm enjoying it.
Not to brag, I think I bought the first copy though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is there a way we can fact check that?
There's got to be a way.
No,
I don't know.
I was staying up until I saw it go live on Amazon.
Okay.
And I was like, so I bought it.
I think you sent the link that you bought it, and then I bought it. So you might have gotten it just before me.
Yeah, Tate, let me know if you want me to sign that book. Correct. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I just love nerding out on all the Bluff Creek stuff. There's just so much to it. Like, and it's when it boils down to it, the reason that I like it so much, it's because it's the most well documented Bigfoot sighting in history. If you believe it. If you don't, there are people that don't believe it that talk about it their entire life. That's the one thing that, like, they don't believe it and they talk about it over and over, and they cite all the reasons why they think it's fake. They become emotionally involved in this, and they do hours and hours of research to disprove it. And I think that's so cool. We need those people, because to me, I went from believing the film, thinking it's real, but not knowing why. And then going, you know what? Maybe there's an easy explanation to this that I'm just not seeing. And you got other people that have a lot more information that are saying it's fake. So you go and check what they're saying, and all of a sudden you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and you realize what they're saying doesn't add up. It's not true. All the stuff that Bob Hieronymus says is not accurate. The film wasn't filmed 40 miles out of, 5 miles from Widgepeck, like he says. We've been there. You've been there a million times. It wasn't filmed there. It was filmed much, 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 much deeper in there. He couldn't name the state where it was filmed at first. He said it was up in Washington, and there's stories about that, about if he maybe wore some sort of suit and Patterson recorded some B-roll footage of him up there, But the deeper you dig, it's like you can't completely prove it and you can't completely disprove it, despite what people tell you.
It made me laugh because I was watching that documentary on Hulu. Was it Bigfoot or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And they were interviewing Bob Hieronymus, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Bob Gimlin never waves at me when he drives by," and his wife is like, "Oh yeah, he does." And he's like,
yeah. Yeah. And I like when they were like, "Well, what about the leg thing?" And he's like, he had a perfect explanation. Well, it's my wallet. It's like, well, that doesn't look like someone has their wallet in their leg, instead of like omitting that, like, I don't know, you're supposed to say, oh, it's just the way the suit was or something like that, and then they, but there's a lot of stuff. The suit that Philip Morris actually made back in the day doesn't line up at all with the description that Bob Hieronymus gives of the suit that he wore, that he says he wore. So
they give two
how is
different
that possible?
descriptions of the suit. It doesn't
exactly, and saying that Patterson slightly modified it doesn't open it for it being completely different, like a completely different suit. And then he talks about, but like there's so much story to it, and I try to at least tell a little bit of it in this video that I made, a little bit of it, which I think I talked a lot about Jerry Crew, and I try to just because you can visit these spots, and that's what's so awesome. Like, you can still visit like exactly where Jerry Crew found these footprints and exactly where he found his machinery pushed into the oils of the barrels thrown into the creek. Like, you can see it for yourself. Has the place changed since then? Maybe slightly, but
speaking of those oil drums, that reminded me, because I know when Small Town Monsters, Alex and Eli went there to do Beyond the Trail, they covered it, but I think your documentary covered it better of what happened with Bandit.
Yeah.
When we all walked up that way, what did you think of that situation with Bandit and how Bandit and Ron are experienced hikers?
Well, that was weird. I mean, you're going off of what Ron says about his dog, and we spent 3 days with Bandit.
Or
For
more.
those of you that don't know, there's a guy named Ron Reed that joined us, and he's been all over the country. I believe he said his dog has hiked the entire Appalachian Trail with him. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
So the dog has been around bears. Ron's seen his reaction around bears. Ron's seen his reaction about every animal you could think of. Well, this dog totally freaked out. Now, it wasn't at a random moment. This dog, and I got some of it on video, and that was like my favorite part, where we're filming Jamie and Dustin and a couple other people. We're all just kind of discussing the Jerry Crew prints, and Jamie's telling me how, he spoke to Jay Rowland, who was a guy that was around with Jerry Crew back then and saw the prints as well. And he was telling him exactly where they were, measurements from the bridge to where those prints were found. And we're standing in that spot, and Ron's dog just does this weird slow walk away, and he turns and faces, I can't remember if it's the creek or the mountainside on the other side of the road. And he just totally freezes, and he stands there for a while. And the guy next to me, it's one of the guys that was there with Ken Gerhard. He goes,
Wow.
"Did you hear that?" And I was like, "I did hear something." And right when he said that, you hear this, bang, bang way down in the creek, and the dog's frozen. And that's when everybody made the comment, "Oh, look, there's like a wolf in the wild." Because it was getting dark and all you see is like the dog's silhouette, I think Jamie said that joking around because everybody turned around after they said, the guy said, "Did you hear that?" Well, we heard it right after too. And then he just ducked into the bushes and wouldn't come out. And Bandit was just stuck in the bushes, not coming out. And we all started walking back. And I remember seeing Bandit go in the bushes, but I'm like, he's a dog. Dogs will be dogs. But Ron goes, "Guys, have you seen Bandit?" And I go, "Yeah, he's down there." So Ron goes down the road, grabs his dog Bandit, and realizes that his dog Bandit doesn't want to walk back.
Weird.
Now everyone's walking back. Everyone's going back. I want you to now. This is why I love filming so much. I love filming all of this stuff because just like Robert was talking about how you went back and like you had all this footage and all this dialogue to remind you. If you would have like recited a lot of that off your memory, it would have been probably all over the place. At least if I did, it would have. But you have this like documented, and you have the audio. So what happened there was Bandit went down. Ron's trying to pull him back, literally like dragging him back. And he's like, "Guys, do you have a leash, a belt, a cord, something I can drag him back with?" He's not coming back. I've never seen my dog act like this. The dog's gone the entire Appalachian Trail, been around bears. This is the first time Ron has seen him act like this. The dog's totally cowering, tail between his legs, shaking. So I give him my belt. I take off the belt and he makes a leash and he's dragging Bandit back up the road. And we finally catch up to the rest of the people and they're over here shining lights in the woods, and it was Ken's friend that's going, he goes, "I am absolutely positive something just ran through here." And we're going, "Oh, really?" And you look at the way it is and it just didn't make sense for something to run through there. And I don't know. He swore. The other guy, I think his name was Daniel, I think heard it too. I'm not sure. But, it was just a weird incident. Getting back to camp, Alex starts going, "Did you guys do a whoop? Did you guys do like a whoop or yell or something like that?" And I remember him walking around and I'm going, maybe this guy's getting overzealous. Maybe he's getting excited hearing things. And lo and behold, he sends us a recording. He goes, "Guys, listen to this." And there's like this distant whoop out in the woods.
Yeah, it was
Right
clearly
when that happened.
It was clearly on the video, and none of us heard it, which is nuts. And
Well, all of us were like I was at the fire ring, and
I think
you guys were the last ones into camp, and that's when he heard it at the time. No one else did, and I got picked up on camera. So we heard some weird, I don't know, like some ruckus down in the creek. You had Bandit freaking out. We were walking back. Some guy says that he heard something run through the brush. We get back. Alex records this loud whoop. I don't know. And it is what it is. Like it is. I mean, is there a plausible explanation to absolutely all of that? Your guess is as good as mine. What was it?
Yeah. What's crazy was, I wouldn't say terribly far from where you guys were having that stuff happened. That's not too far from where Alex, Eli, and I had those Rockslide, that rocks falling on us that first night we got there, and then we heard something in
Correct.
the creek walking away.
Correct. Yeah. I was just listening to the latest Cliff and Bobo podcast, and Cliff was talking about how he was walking that exact place. He said, you just up the road from the Notice Creek Bridge. And he's like, oh, I heard something. He goes, I thought for sure that something was going to walk out of the woods. He goes, something that sounded bipedal was going crunch, 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 and big coming right down. There's a lot of stories there. There's a lot of stories in that area, you know?
There's a ton of stories in that area. And then my other favorite part of your documentary that you did, and this for me too, was, I mean, that whole trip last year, was it last year? Like, yeah, I think it was. It was the most activity I've ever had in that place of going there. And
Yeah.
my favorite night that I've had so far was definitely Laird Meadow, when Alex and I had something thrown at us and we had a wood knock, and
Yeah.
the way you edited it was really good. It was like as it happened.
That's what I tried.
Talk about-
I want to put what I want to do when I film is I want to put people there. Like if they're one of the people with us, you know, I want them to feel what we felt, you know, and you can do that through, you know, adding narration, maybe a little music, a little tension music, I just want to convey like what it was like being there. You know, I don't want to roll over it like some History Channel documentary that just touches base and you never really. I want the boots on the ground feeling. I want you to feel that, and that's what I really try to do with that night at Laird Meadow, because that was just too weird. I wish I could take. Oh man, I just wish I could take anybody that had any doubts of that anything mysterious was going on. You know, I don't want to say a non-believer, because then again, we didn't see Bigfoot, right? What we heard were knocks, a branch thrown,
dude.
and those came from all different directions. And it was so cool because we met up and we were like, all right, let's go over the story. What was it? And it's live on camera, you know, there.
Yep.
We heard this, and this, and everybody described the same thing. So
what, dude, I'm telling you, that was probably the most significant for me, because when I listened to the audio, it's not like it was in person. In person,
no, it was way louder in person.
I was thinking, okay, could that be a bear or elk or something, or deer walking in the forest? But then the knock that followed that in the same direction as the stuff that was either thrown or stepped on or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, you know what? In a weird way, I was like really calm and wasn't nervous about that happening.
Me too. I didn't act like I thought I would act. I thought I'd be like not freaking out, but like I thought my adrenaline would just totally skyrocket, and it didn't. I stayed totally calm and like observant, which is exactly how I was kind of hoping I'd be.
No, that's exactly what happened. I remember this vividly because like you guys are literally across the meadow. I could see your IR lights on. We weren't terribly far. I mean, we were far enough, but we kind of hid in the shrubbery of across the meadow. And then Alex and I are on the far end of the meadow, kind of away from the road. You guys are closer to it. And we're sitting there after Stevie makes that call.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because Alex is actually sitting down in the bushes behind me. I'm standing up kind of near the meadow. And Alex and I are probably 3-4 feet away from each other. And we're just sitting there quietly with no lights. I had my audio on my phone going. He had his audio on his audio recorder going. And then we heard like this kind of thing behind us. And we looked at each other, we're like, what the crap? And I think Alex, I think it made him a little bit nervous, and he kind of got up and got closer to the meadow.
It was right behind you.
It was right behind
you guys. Well, the deal was that this is another reason that I love filming all this stuff, is because there are things that happen at the time that I don't realize, like that I said or that we did. And one of them was, I kept saying, no, there was a big branch crack, and then there was a whoop. And they're going, what? And now I totally remember, like when you're standing there, I want you to picture this, okay? It's pitch black. The only thing you see is when you look up at the sky, you see the contrast from the tree line and the stars in the sky. You don't see anything else. You're trying to look around and it's just like your eyes they don't see anything. It's pitch black. So a lot of the times, just to get like a visual, you're kind of looking up at the stars and listening. And if something happens over there, you look over there, you can't see anything. You're just listening. So when this happened, my view is like up at the stars at the tree line, because it's the only thing you can make out, I guess. And I heard this branch break, and if you listen to it, it's on my documentary, it's on yours, it's on Alex's. You hear this sort of champagne bottle sound, which
Yeah.
I still can't explain. I've showed it to so many people, going like, "What does this sound like to you?" And they're going, "Well, it almost sounds like a extremely hollow piece of something, because it goes. You hear crack, crack, then you hear this plunk, plunk. And I thought that was a whoop in person because it was so loud, and it literally sounded like whoop. Like it comes off the same way if you listen to it, but when you listen to it on audio, you can almost tell like it's a something hitting the surface of something. And that happened behind you guys. Then we heard this distant knock way, way down.
In that same direction.
In that same direction, but further down, right? Like, and it was like this, like a baseball bat, on a baseball. We waited a lot longer, and we were silent, dead silent for a long time. And that's when over by the cars, that's when we heard, it was just insane. Like that right there just changed. It kind of, I want to say it just changed my perspective on so much, because it literally sounded like somebody taking a baseball bat to a tree. And I kept saying, you can hear the texture of the bark. You can hear the texture of the bark on the tree. You can hear the branch split. And, and then we heard it behind me and Eli, like on the road, but kind of behind us, the same sound, the same knock. And I was like, wow, that's really crazy. Sorry, I had to. So, yeah, it was like from all different directions. If it was just one, maybe it's easy to explain. Two, I don't know. But you're hearing the same thing and this anomalous sound just from all directions. I don't know. I was like kind of dumbfounded at that night. I think we all were.
Dude, you know what? Like I said, the trip for me, that was the most that I've ever gotten consecutively, day after day in that kind of general area. Because the rock slide that happened, as we're looking up, we hear something in the creek. The thing that happened with Bandit, the whoop that Alex recorded that nobody heard, the stuff at Laird Meadow, the possible UFO we saw at Elk Valley.
That was nuts. Yeah, that was very weird.
Just a list of things that you're like, if you tell somebody, you're like, dude, there's no way.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Dude, that really happened. I'm not making it up. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Bluff Creek now 3 or 4 times, I think. And every time I come out, everyone calls me and, how'd it go? Nothing. It was just a nice camping trip. And this last time, they were like, how'd it go? And I was like, I think I saw 2 UFOs. I heard all kinds of stuff. I start telling the stories, and they're like, there's no way. There's no way, And it's like, and the best way to prove something's real is to hold it over the fire. Hold it over the fire and, like, what could it have been? And try your hardest to disprove it. And those things were just so anomalous that I can't, there's no explanation for them. And the fact that it all happened from so many different people that, like, I had just met with this one guy. There's no way like he and I and the rest of the group like conspired to come up with something. I've known Alex and Eli for 2 days at that point.
Yep. That was actually, honestly, I met Alex and Eli. Well, I've known them over like from clubhouse rooms and stuff like that. And that was my first time meeting them, was actually a few days earlier when we were driving up to Northern California. And so, yeah, I didn't know them that well either. And like you said, you've only known those guys a few days. And
exactly, yeah. And we all walked out when we met up in the middle of the meadow that night. And we all had the same kind of reaction and came kind of same explanation, as to about what we heard. So I don't know.
I know. So, I mean, Robert, you guys were camping there too. I think we told you guys a little bit of what happened. What do you think about all of that?
Like these nut jobs came back to camp.
Yeah, these guys are out there seeing all sorts of shit. They're making it up. They want to have an experience, so they're going out of their way. And it's like mines. Everybody focuses together, and they leak mines like, whoa, and they all see the same thing. You know, that's got to be the only answer for that one.
Yeah.
No, it's funny how it goes where it's like it's quiet, nothing happens most of the time, just like you said. And then every once in a while, when you least expect it, you're like, what was that? And then it's not just one thing. Then there's something else. And then there's something else. And like, is this all coincidental, or is it building up to something big? Or are we at the right place at the right time? Or why all of a sudden are we having all these strange things? Are we now more sensitive to all this stuff that we're not able to experience it more before we didn't because we're preoccupied? I'm not a well, I believe there's stuff out there we don't know anything about. And most of the time I go out, there's nothing. It's just like, oh, another fun day in the forest. We get to follow on bear tracks. How sweet. And then there's sometimes where you hear things or you feel things, or, you know, I'll just kind of diverge just a little bit, but I've told this before, but Twin Lakes is a great place to go. And we went, I think it was 2 years ago when we started the podcast. I think the first In the Field podcast was with Bart and Bobo at Twin Lakes.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, so I was sitting there at the on the shore of the larger of the Twin Lakes, and I have a flute, and I need to practice more, so I'm out practicing. And what I like to do is play it really loud because it echoes off the lake and echoes off the trees. It's really cool. So I'll blow it really loud a few times, and then I go, okay, now let's get serious. Well, I blew it loud a few times, and Bart was back at camp, which isn't too that far away over at Laos, and then Bobo was at the back of his pickup truck moving stuff around. And then all of a sudden I hear him yelling. And I'm going, what the hell? It doesn't like my music? What's with that? So I keep playing a little bit more, and I still hear him making noise. So I stop playing, and I go over there. What's going on? And Bobo says, hey, dude, when you started playing it really loud, something just threw a rock behind me. I was like, what? So while I was making the noise, a rock comes off the hill. And by the way, the hill is not a hill. It's just a slight rise, which means nothing should be falling off the hill. Nothing. It's not enough momentum or height. It just gradually goes up the hill. So while he was in the back of his car, something comes flying down the hill, hits the ground behind him, and rolls down towards the lake. He doesn't see anything, but he hears that. And the funny thing is, it's recorded on I was recording the sound of my flute off the lake, and you can hear the thud sound. And then you hear Bobo making a lot of noise. And that's funny with that. Well, talking about recording sounds, not to diverge, but episode 27 of In the Field, when we're walking down to the film site, it's about 51 minutes long, but Dustin's there, Kip's there, Rowdy's there, I'm there. We're walking down to the film site, and I was supposed to interview Dustin and Kip at the film site, but I blew that one. But we're walking down the film site, and I'm kind of narrating some spots, and I'm interviewing Rowdy, and we're about 3.5 minutes in. And while I'm interviewing Rowdy and Rowdy's talking, you hear a ho in the background. Well, it wasn't Kip. It wasn't Dustin. But that sound is clearly recorded. When I'm doing the editing for the podcast, I'm listening through it. I go, what was that? Because I don't know if you picked up on it or not. Tate, have you ever listened to that part? 3.5 minutes in?
I don't think so. I'm going to look.
You hear the yo.
Oh, I got to check on that.
Yeah.
I got to listen to that one. Pretty cool. I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's
One of
3
these
minutes
days,
in
you
or
guys are going to get one of those in the field ones with like a howl or something. I'm always just waiting for the day because you guys are at all the right spots, all the right people.
Well, actually, in the field when I'm interviewing, I think Bart and Dustin, we heard some weird sound, and we stopped the recording, and we listened for a few seconds. You guys gonna hear that? Yeah, we didn't know what it was. And then we finished the interview, but that was kind of weird there. But yeah, it's great. And Jonathan, I just want to say, it's like your story is the story behind the story. So I like what you're doing, because a lot of people just take it for face value, but the real story is the people and what's happening and what they hear and how they experience it, and what goes through their minds while this is going on. And lots of times we kind of overlook that, but I'm glad you're focusing on that part of it, because like the focus of trying to capture the essence of a dog reaction that only the owner knows the dog is not reacting normally. Everybody else assumes, but the owner knows. And that makes it even more frightening, more nervous when you see your animal do that.
Exactly. Like the look on Ron's face, I can't forget it. Like Ron looked legit freaked out because of his dog, going like, I don't understand. I don't get it. He kept saying it over and over. I don't get it. And then we start telling him like, well, we just heard some stuff over there and he tucked into the bush, after we heard that stuff. Maybe he heard something. So we're asking what makes him uneasy. And he's like a deliberate gunshot makes him uneasy. But I'm talking about like right next to him, like right around him, like people shooting around him. He goes, that's about it. So he's freaked out. I'm kind of like worried. What's this dog know that we don't?
Now we're looking at circumstantial evidence. Everybody else is saying there's something going on down the trail in the direction we're heading, and the dog's going, I'm not going that way. I'm gonna stay right here where it's safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He knew better. He knew better. It was when we walked up the road when more strange things happened, and yeah, just a strange, very odd place, Laos Camp.
Yes, a lot happens. And like you said, most of the time it's just like nice visit. It's kind of cool. The river talks to you all the time, but sometimes you hear the sounds that don't match what you were hearing earlier in the creek, which makes you wonder if that was really the creek. Exactly, now, if I had my dog with me as a second party to look over and say, what do you think that was? And if I could read his body language, I'd probably be more afraid than I probably should be.
Dogs don't lie.
Yeah. I think that's what happened with Ron. Why is my dog this scared? But yeah. And what was neat? Okay, so I got a lot of wildlife. Like my past few times up there, I had not seen bears. But this time I saw 3 bears. One on the way in, Tate, when you guys were ahead of us.
Yep.
Ran right across the road, right in front of you guys. Another time was when I was driving out, and I got that one on camera. If you watch that video, that's the last part of the video that I put in, and it's almost to the credits. And I'm just driving, and I was, holding my phone on the dash, and this bear darts out on the road and starts running along the road. So I kind of sped up just a little bit to keep up with it.
Dude, that was
Bears
sick.
run fast, by the way.
Yeah.
I must have been going 25, 30 miles per hour. And it ran in front of me. I got to zoom in on it a little bit. Then it ducked down. And then what I didn't get to document because I ran out of memory chips, which is a lesson learned. Take more memory cards. I went out Cedar Camp Road. Cedar Glen or Cedar Camp? Cedar Camp.
Cedar
right?
Camp. Yeah.
Cedar Camp Road on accident. I made the wrong turn. I didn't go the right way on the go road. And I just kept following this road. And there were like 3 junctions that I had to take. And I guessed on all 3 of them. And I ended up in the valley. So, but it was pretty scary. The road was really sketchy. I don't know when's the last time someone's been up that, but there were just a ton of potholes. And, it was a little uncertain. Everybody thought I was leaving out the go road. So I thought, oh man, something happens to me out here. It's a long, probably a couple days hike out, So yeah, there was that. But I managed to see another bear. Then on the way out, pulled over, and right there on the Klamath, there was a bald eagle. So I got to see all that wildlife. But I have a theory here. I think that those fires that happened up in Happy Camp north of that whole Bluff Creek area, from what I heard, it really ravaged the area up there. So I think that it pushed all the wildlife down.
That's exactly what I think.
I think it pushed wildlife and, maybe some not so known animals down as well. Because, I saw so many bear.
We saw
so many birds, so many eagles, saw a lot of foxes, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We did see that fox run across the road on the way back from Elk Valley, didn't we?
I saw like 3 or 4 on the way there. And I think I saw 1 bear on the way back because we were at Elk Valley till like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah, where the sun was coming up. Robert, does that happen when a certain part of the forest gets burned out? It just
do the animals kind of scramble the way I imagine it, the animals have their route that they travel all the time, and it gets burned out and they kind of scramble to find a new part. And that's when you might get lucky seeing deer and bear in places you've never seen them before.
Yeah, what also might happen is you get a high flux of animals in the area more than usual because, well, they need water, they need food, right? They need shelter. If it's not there, they're going to have to go to a place where it is. So they end up going to places that's more livable. And guess what? Their numbers go up and you get to see a lot more of them. But yeah, that shift, that's a normal process, the shift before.
Dude,
Yeah. So
that makes me wonder if that's why we got so much activity this past year, is because of all the fires. And the previous years they weren't that close, but still.
Yeah. Well, that's a good theory. You'll have to do a study on that.
Oh, for sure.
You can GoFundMe, get a study money, and you can go. Get that out.
Yeah.
Before we get too wrapped up, are you working on any more projects, Jonathan? What's up your sleeve next?
Yeah, the process has been really slow going, unfortunately. Between moving to Idaho, getting a new job, having a new baby, getting situated here, man, it's like I've been here for 6 months and it's been pretty hard. But what I am working on right now is it's going to be called the SoCal Bigfoot thermal footage, and it is your thermal video, Tate. I went down to Southern California with you, and we went to a spot where you recorded something in the woods. And I talked to your buddy Austin that was there too that night. And I went there to prove that it was a deer or a bear standing up, or with lack of depth perception through a thermal imager, it could have been something like a bird. Well, I went there and it wasn't any of those things. I don't know what it was, but it stood up, turned around, and walked away. And what's on camera lines up with what Austin says. It was so cool to interview Austin, and because he comes off as, he might be the best like on camera Bigfoot witness that I've ever seen, because he's so incredibly thorough about his thoughts. He picks his words very intelligently. And it just, when he tells you the story, it like removes all doubt in your mind. He goes through his thought process of what was going on, and afterward, and before, I asked him, "What'd you think before all this?" And I asked him what he thought about all after that. So I'm filming that. I mean, I'm editing that, and should be out. I don't know when, but yeah, we're working on that. Yeah. And I gotta say something. We talked all about my Bigfoot of Humboldt documentary. Another person I interviewed was Jamie Wayne. We didn't mention him. We mentioned Carl Crew. We talked to Jamie Wayne. Jamie Wayne, I met him a few years ago at Bluff Creek. Really nice guy, very knowledgeable. But what I like most about him is his passion for how that area. The guy loves that area. And along with his love for that area, he learns as much as he can about it, and he actually, talks to a lot of the people that are like in the Hoopa reservation. He took classes at the local college there, so he knows a lot of them. He has a lot of neat stories about their history and culture. And my favorite Bluff Creek podcast episode is the Jamie Wayne one. And when I tell people about it, they go, "Really?" I go, "Well, go back and listen to it, man." He like unloads on the Native American history, on the history of the area with logging. And, I thought my goal up there, I said, I gotta have this guy on camera. Out of all the people up there, I gotta have him on camera because he just speaks so concise and everything he says comes across perfectly.
Yeah, Jamie's a good guy. He's pretty smart and knowledgeable, and we like him.
Yeah.
Where can people find your work and keep up to date with you?
I'll go on YouTube and just search Western Bigfoot Exploration. You'll see my little logo there I got. It's like mint green. I think I'm the only Western Bigfoot Exploration, right? I needed a cool name. So,
yeah.
But you can find it on there. I have like 3 or 4 videos, I think. And there'll be plenty more to come. I live in Idaho now, so it's still the western part of the United States. I'm going to be up in the Idaho mountains doing a lot of inquiring about strange things that people have seen. I also just want to, I'm a big time hiker and backpacker, so I'll be in the mountains regardless. The Bigfooting thing is just a big plus, that's the thing. You go Bigfooting, it's just camping and backpacking, and you do a little extra, right? Staying up all night,
Yep.
maybe, or whatever it is, and people try to give you a hard time going and look for Bigfoot. It's like, do you go camping? Well, pretty much the same thing you did. I probably enjoyed it more, because one thing I'm going to say in this new documentary is I already have it recorded. I'm going to talk about how Bigfooting allows you to experience the forest in a way that that you just don't in any other way.
Yeah.
I've never walked around the forest for such a long amount of time in the wee hours of the morning. The forest at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning is beautiful. The moon lights it up. After a while, the longer you're out there, the more your eyes adjust to the woods. You hear things that you don't hear in the daytime, normal things, weird things sometimes, who knows, but it just gives you a whole new aspect. And I remember being in those Los Padres National Forest with you in Austin and just going, my God, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced when that moon was out and you can see the entire valley. Remember that? All the mountain ridges.
Yeah. It's awesome there.
Yeah. So Bigfooting allows you to see the woods in a way that you never really do.
It's so true.
Well, I've got one. I'd like one last question to ask Jonathan,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Don't
What
mind.
was that? What would be the most frightening experience if you've had in the outdoors?
The most frightening experience, I'd have to go back to, it's like, man, I went to it must be 5 miles from where Bart Coutinho filmed his thermal footage. And I was looking through a thermal imager and saw someone, what I thought was at first shrubs, then it turned into someone, and then it turned into everyone's here in camp asleep, standing there looking back at me for, when I went back over it, it was like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I had never in my life felt like I was going to urinate myself. In that moment, I literally had to squeeze the bladder. I was just, I wasn't ready for it. It was terrifying, Yeah, I've talked about it before. It's just, it was the weirdest thing. And whenever, it turned and walked down the side of the mountain and the side of the hill. And in the morning, we went up there and tried to look where it walked down, and you can see that it looked like something had moved through there. Maybe it was a game trail. It looked like a lightly used game trail, but it was like we couldn't climb it. It was really hard. You could climb down that, but it just I couldn't. It wasn't as easy as whatever I was looking at did it. And then I can hear crunch, 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 crunch as this thing like kind of walked adjacent to camp.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty bad. I was pretty scared. And retrospect nowadays, it's like that fuel, that just, to say it changed your life is an understatement. When there's something out there and now you're sure of it, that there's something out there and it's unexplained and people say they're not sure if it exists. There's a reason that, it's almost sad to say I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, in pursuit of just trying to find anything, whether it's more experiences, whether it's footprints, whatever it is, it's just like you find yourself kind of hell-bent, and I don't know, call it insanity, whatever you want. But, it's like that moment just sparked that whole thing. And yeah, that was the most frightening thing.
What if the Grimm story were all true?
Which story?
The fairy tales, Grimm stories. What if they were all true?
Oh man, yeah, we'd be screwed, right? We'd all be cursed and damned. So
I just have something really quick I wanted to ask you too. One of the coolest things besides hearing Bigfoots or even possibly filming one, I think, besides meeting Bob Gimlin, the other really cool thing was when you met us at the China Flat Museum in Willow Creek. And
Oh, dude, yes.
what did you think about? I didn't say. I want you to tell what happened there. What did you
Well, I
think
showed
about?
up to the China Creek Museum, and that's where you, Eli, and Alex were. And we walked in, and the lady, God, she's so nice. I love those people just because of what they did for us. I forgot her name. She opened up these cases, these shelves, and in those shelves were some of the most historic Bigfoot footprints you can find, including probably the most important ones, Patty's actual footprints that Roger Patterson cast. The stick is still in the print. The stick from the ground in Bluff Creek is still in the print. We got to touch those. You know?
That was the most insane.
You can be a skeptic, a total skeptic. And as famous as the Patterson Gimlin film is, let's say you're absolutely hell-bent that it's a hoax. You're still touching like one of the most famous things because like that video's known worldwide, you know?
Yeah, dude.
And yeah, and you're touching these prints that are like cast from that. That was amazing, man. You know, to see the originals. We all have replicas and we've all seen replicas, but we saw the real deal and the you know, you can see a little more detail, but it was just kind of like, I don't know, I was like awestruck. I know you were too.
Dude, that was the coolest thing to hold and feel the original. Like you said, all the debris was in the tracks. They were like this is the first generation. This is it right here.
That's it. That came straight off of Patty's foot into the sand and straight into that museum. And now us hoodlums are touching them.
I can't.
Yeah, they're as real as the tears of Jonathan's eyes right now.
My favorite thing is I was listening to the In the Field episode with Steven Strufert that Robert did, and Robert's like, "Oh, Tate was saying we should save the cast at the museum if Willow Creek gets burned up." And it's funny the reference that Steven was like. He's like, "Imagine finding footprints of Jesus." That's kind of what that was like. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. No, but you know, Bobo, I heard him say on somewhere, I don't know where, but he said, you know, think about this. If we ever discover Bigfoot, these things are going to be in the Smithsonian.
Dude, I hope I hope that, but I really don't want that because we'll never
Right.
see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it gets to that big place on the East Coast, does that mean they get locked up forever to protect them?
Yes, it does.
Exactly. You're not going to get to touch them, see them up close, and you know.
Yep. Let's keep them here. Let's keep them where they belong in California, Willow Creek.
Yep.
Exactly.
My great aunt Clara has baskets in the Smithsonian, Chitamacha baskets in the Smithsonian that I'd love to go see. And I wonder if they would actually let me see it. You know, it'd be great to go find something like that and see those.
You'd probably have to like prove that you're related somehow for them.
Yeah, just look at the photos. Come on.
No kidding. Well, Jonathan, thank you for coming on such last minute to do this.
No problem, man.
Really appreciated. Robert, thank you for co-hosting.
Sure.
Last thing you want to say?
And last words, Robert Leiterman with last words. Are you sure? Another
word.
30 minutes. I'll just get warmed up. No, it's been, I'll just say this. Jonathan, I remember when I first met you, I enjoyed your company then. And every time I'm out and about and I get to see you out there, I love spending time with you. Yeah, I love that time we sat around the fire and I learned so much about you, about your job, where you're from, the people you met. And like you then, I like you now, and keep up the good work. And I like your approach. I like the way you're looking behind the story behind the story. That's how I envision when I watch your work, and I enjoy it. And thank you for putting a nice word in about the book. I appreciate that as well.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we'll have to have you on when the new documentary comes out. That'll be fun. Talk about some cool behind the scenes stuff.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys, for doing this. And Have a great time, great night, great day, whatever. See you next week.
See you.
All right.